Hi, my name is Dana Golden. Thank you for sticking with me to almost the last lecture in this entire course. Today we're going to talk about defining the capacity product. And when I talk about the capacity product, this is the commitment of resources to be available to generate electricity or reduce demand during peak and reliability events. There's a lot of concern that renewables can't do this because they're not dispatchable. So there's a lot of questions as to whether or not they should be considered a part of the capacity product. So the purpose of defining the capacity product is to ensure sufficient resources are available to make system reliability and provide long-term investment signals for system accuracy. So you want to think about availability, firmness, and diversity. How available are resources to ramp up quickly and to perform during specific system conditions and to deliver when needed? Often you actually worry not even just about renewables, but about older, more expensive coal plants. Are they actually going to bid into the market or answer the call, or are they actually just going to forego those capacity payments? They're actually trying to call your bluff as to how much you need that capacity. So diversity includes traditional generation, renewables, demand response, and storage. And you can look at the performance metrics. You've had increased incentive metrics, such as how do these resources interact with scarcity events. Failure to perform can result in penalties, while exceeding may result in bonuses. So now let's talk about capacity market bidding behavior. What factors can influence bids? Net cone. So bids are influenced by the expected cost of new entry by the generators. Opportunity cost. Does entering the capacity market affect how much you are going to earn in the energy or ancillary services market? What is your cost of actually being available? And risk tolerance. Generators with higher risk tolerance may bid more aggressively and risk bidding out of the capacity market because they want those higher costs and they believe that they'll have a little bit of market power. So types of bidding strategies, how do these generators bid? Some do cost-based bidding where they look at actual fixed and variable costs. This is kind of what we assume in a lot of the models of this, but some generators also bid strategically and adjust bids to maximize profits while complying with market rules, and other bidders do pivotal supplier behavior where they act as market power providers with significant market share and bid higher, knowing that their capacity is essential, and they'll almost certainly bid into the market. Offer caps based on net cone and marginal cost can help mitigate market power. Also, pivotal supplier tasks to identify pivotal suppliers and mitigate their anti-competitive behavior. Figure out who potentially has market power and restrict what they can do to potentially raise the prices. And counting capacity, how do you think about non-dispatchable resources, demand response, and storage? Non-dispatchable resources often are credited for capacity based on either probabilistic modeling or based on historical peak periods. Variability and intermittency and weather on time of day makes non-dispatchable resources very questionable for capacity markets. Some people question as to whether or not wind and solar should even be eligible for capacity markets. And then you have demand response, reduction in electricity consumption by consumers during peak demand. Obviously, this is low cost, fast response to demand needs, grid needs, and it's very distributed, which is really nice if you need a particular area. It has to be verified through testing and historical performance, and there's always the question as to whether or not people overestimate their demand and try to overestimate the baseline so they don't actually have to reduce demand in a particular event. I'll also mention a weird use case for demand response is crypto. So a lot of crypto currency miners participate in the demand response market and act in the capacity market now. For some reason, crypto is highly energy intensive and is already responsive to electricity cost. But now some cryptocurrency miners also act as demand response resources. This is an interesting world we now live in. And then energy storage. I love energy storage. Really great. Some people question, whether we should account for the fact that energy storage can only be there for as much as it can store. So maybe it won't. It will have substantial limitation. Won't be there during extended scarcity events, and ensure that there's an alignment of market signals for charging and discharging. So it's not charging too much to take up power and then create market scarcity. You have to look at how energy storage works in the portfolio, and then how do you actually do this capacity counting. You look at one option is effective load carrying capability. This is used for renewables and storage. What actually is their role in peak demand, and how should they be able to bid into capacity market, and then historical and task-based performance methods for demand response. So here's the last thing we can talk about. We can talk about off-peak market and the peak market. So if you're a resource that can be available for peaks, like demand response and energy storage, when you're most likely to be needed, unlike solar, which tends to peak in the middle of the day when people are at work and there's low demand. If you can be there when people are needed, you should demand your peer premium, and you should be able to bid at higher rates in the capacity market. Also, location has started to impact the capacity market supply. RTOs now can differentiate capacity markets by locations. RTOs set boundaries of capacity markets. So reliability takes into account real grid constraints. In New York, we have different zones for each capacity market, and there's a trade-off between high capacity costs created by segmenting markets and advantaging supply in the zone and reflecting the reality of transmission. So smaller and smaller capacity markets encourage more build out of capacity where it's really needed, and it encourages build out of transmission. But there's a trade-off between having this incentive, but also potentially advantaging supply in the zone and having higher capacity costs passed on to consumers. And obviously, capacity zones can encourage transmission build out in the long term. Here are the New York zones. There are a lot of them. You have Long Island, you have New York City, and then you have all these other ones. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you are going to be New Yorkers, and you'll be upset that I said all these other ones, but there are a lot of them. It's a big state. A notable one is the capital region up here, which is a really interesting thing. My friend works there, and we often talk about it. He works at a natural gas plant in Zone F. And of course, you have E and D. D, the North region, is fascinating to me because this is where Quebec Hydro sends its power. So there's really low prices there. And I'm interested in seeing, once they get the Champlain-Hudson Power Express completed, how this also affects the J zone down in New York City, and whether or not prices will finally come down on Long Island. And so then you can have capacity market equilibria. And so this is what we're all talking about. Here is the capacity offers. Here is the minimum capacity requirement. It has to be met. And here's the slope demand. And then here's a vertical demand curve for capacity requirement. And so, supply meets demand. And there's kind of an odd shape for the capacity market demand. I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.